The silence before the storm. The stars above the frontier colonies had always been quiet. Traders spoke of peaceful routes, of distant suns untouched by war, of forgotten ruins orbiting dead worlds. The silence had lasted so long that people believed it permanent. Yet silence is never forever. Warnings had come. They were not shouted, not clear, but whispers. Anomalies in deep space scans, strange signals from derelicts, travelers who swore they saw impossible shapes moving between stars. The few who listened tried to speak, but most dismissed them. After all, humanity had grown proud. They had built ships that could cross light years, weapons that could burn moons, engines that turned void into home. Who could challenge such power? On one frontier outpost, Commander Hale studied the records. He was not a man of myths. He trusted numbers, sensor graphs, and battlefield logs. But something in the data felt wrong. Ghost readings came and went like shadows in starlight. Whole patrols vanished without distress calls. Old legends spoke of an ancient fleet that had once swept across the galaxy, erasing entire civilizations. Hale thought them stories to frighten children. Yet now, the fragments aligned too neatly. The legends had always ended with the same warning: do not disturb what sleeps. The council in the core did not listen. Their halls were filled with voices that argued over trade, territory, and prestige. Warnings were noted, then buried under paperwork. Superstition, they called it. Paranoia. For them, danger was always far away, always someone else's problem. But on the edge of human space, ships began to vanish faster. Stations went dark. Colonists whispered of a shadow war no one admitted existed, and still the council delayed. Hale stood on the command deck of the Resolute, his cruiser orbiting a quiet mining colony. He watched miners load crates of ore onto freighters. Their lives were simple, fragile. They trusted him to protect them, though they did not know from what. He wished he could tell them. He wished he knew himself. That night, when the stars stretched in frozen silence, Hale's sensors caught something impossible. At first it seemed like a ripple in space. Then the ripple grew. A form emerged, vast, angular, silent. No transponder, no broadcast, only the quiet presence of mass and intent. The ship was blacker than the void, its outline sharp against starlight. It moved not like prey or merchant, but like a predator that needed no haste. The crew stared at the display, breath held. The object dwarfed their cruiser. It carried no insignia, no markings of known empires. Only one word came to Hale's mind as he studied it: warship. The sensors screamed with strange energy signatures. The object scanned them, then drifted away, slipping back into the dark as though it had never been there. Hale wanted to chase, to demand answers, but some primal part of him knew pursuit would be suicide. He filed his report, precise and urgent. He detailed the warship's impossible size, its silent arrival, its aura of ancient design. He ended with a warning: legends may not be legends. Something sleeps in the dark, and it is waking. The response from the council was predictable. They accused him of exaggeration, of letting fear shape his words. They reminded him that humanity had no equal among the stars. They ordered him to continue routine patrols and not spread panic. But on the colony below, miners whispered. They claimed their dreams were filled with visions of vast metal beasts crossing the void. Children drew ships with burning eyes in the dirt. And in the distance, another station went silent. Hale stood at the viewport of the Resolute, staring into the endless black. He remembered the old words, passed like myth through forgotten texts. The warship does not fight. It judges. And when it comes, civilizations fall. He wanted to believe they were only words. But the silence of space had changed. It no longer felt peaceful. It felt heavy, as though a storm had already begun, and humanity had chosen to ignore the thunder. And far beyond, in the cold dark where no human ship had ever traveled, something vast shifted. The first of the legends had stirred. The warnings had been ignored. Soon, silence would end. Echoes of forgotten wars. The council called Commander Hale's report an error of sensors. They told him to recalibrate, to check for cosmic dust, to trust in technology and not in fear. But on the frontier, no one laughed. People whispered instead. Traders refused certain routes. Colonies near empty sectors began to evacuate. Some did not even wait for orders, they simply left, leaving behind half-built homes and silent streets. The Resolute was ordered deeper into the frontier to restore confidence. Hale obeyed, but his crew felt the same tension pressing at their minds. Each man and woman knew they might be flying into a graveyard. Still, they followed because humanity had always been stubborn. They arrived at a station orbiting a red dwarf. Once it had been a hub for travelers, alive with the noise of trade and repair bays. Now the docks were shattered. No lights shone. The station drifted in silence like a corpse. Hale sent drones inside. The feeds showed walls scorched by energy blasts, doors torn apart as if by claws of steel. There were no bodies, not a single sign of life. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. One officer whispered, "It looks like they were taken." Hale gave no answer. He only stared at the hollow station, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching from the dark. When they withdrew, a new signal appeared, faint, almost like static. It pulsed in a rhythm. Hale's technicians traced it to a relay hidden in the asteroid belt nearby. The relay was old, far older than any human design. When they activated it, the message began to play. It was not in human language, yet it was clear. The voice was cold, metallic, endless. "We warned you once. We warned all who came. Do not wake what waits in silence. Do not touch the ruins. Do not reach into the dark. You ignored us." The message repeated over and over until the relay burned out in a burst of static. The crew sat in silence. For the first time, some of them spoke openly of the legends, the old tales of the Eternals, a fleet that had ended empires before humans learned to farm grain. Whole star systems erased in a single campaign. Records lost, leaving only scraps of myth and whispers. "Stories," one officer muttered, though his voice shook. "Just stories." But Hale did not believe that anymore. 2 days later, while patrolling near the ruined station, they saw it again. The warship. It emerged from a fold in space, silent and massive. The hull gleamed with strange alloy, scarred with patterns no human could read. Towers rose from its spine, bristling with unknown weapons. Its engines made no flame, no light, only a ripple of distorted gravity. The Resolute raised shields. Hale gave no order to fire. Instinct told him it would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain. The warship did not attack. Instead, it released drones, small insect-like machines that scattered across the system. They scanned asteroids, dead colonies, even the Resolute. Each drone moved with the precision of predators mapping prey. Then they returned to the great ship, vanishing into hidden ports. Hale tried to open communication. He sent signals in every known frequency, coded messages, even simple broadcasts of human speech. The warship gave no answer. It only turned, slow and deliberate, then folded back into the void. The silence left behind was worse than any battle. Hale sent another report, this time demanding immediate action. He spoke of the warship's drones, of the burned relay warning, of the pattern forming. This was not random. Something was searching, preparing. The council responded with the same words: exaggeration, paranoia, superstition. They accused him of stirring panic. One even laughed during the broadcast, but on the frontier, people had already decided for themselves. Colonies fortified. Old weapons were pulled from storage. Civilian fleets armed their transports. They knew what the Corps refused to admit. Legends were walking again. In the mess hall of the Resolute, the crew sat in silence, eating without taste. Fear hung over them like gravity. One of the younger officers finally asked, "If this is true, what chance do we have?" Hale looked at them, his face tired but steady. "We are human," he said simply, "and humans do not bow until we must. If this warship is real, then we will learn it. If it is legend, we will face it, because we have no other choice." Far beyond, in regions no human map had charted, more ripples spread in the dark. Ancient machines stirred. For ages they had waited for disturbance. Humanity had disturbed them. The storm was no longer approaching. It had already begun. First clash for weeks, the Resolute patrolled the frontier, but the warship did not return. The council grew bolder in their denial. Nothing unusual, they declared. The commander exaggerates. They pointed to trade routes still flowing, colonies still alive. To them, the silence of the council chamber was louder than the silence of the stars. But Hale knew better. The warship had not vanished. It was waiting. The first strike came without warning. A convoy of 6 civilian freighters, guarded by 2 corvettes, sent out a distress call near the Persid Drift. By the time Hale's ship arrived, all that remained were fragments, metal twisted into spirals, wreckage drifting like ash. No escape pods, no survivors. The crew of the Resolute scanned desperately, hoping for life signs. None came. Instead, the sensors detected an energy trail, faint but familiar. The warship had passed through. Hale clenched his fists. This was not an accident. It hunts. The council could no longer ignore the truth. The loss of a convoy filled news channels across human space. Families cried out for justice. Traders demanded protection. The Corps tried to calm the storm with promises of investigation. But the frontier had no time for promises. Within days, Hale was ordered to lead a fleet of 7 ships to track the warship. They called it a demonstration of strength. Hale called it a test. The fleet was small, cruisers and corvettes, armed but not enough for legend. Yet they sailed into the dark, chasing whispers across systems. Every world they passed showed signs: scorched moons, drained stations, colonies stripped clean. Finally, they found it. The warship waited near a dying star, silent and still, as if it had known they would come. Its hull stretched like a mountain of black metal, scars of old wars glowing faintly. Drones swarmed around it like insects orbiting a hive. The human fleet formed up, shields raised, weapons armed. Hale gave no speeches. He only looked at the warship and thought, so it begins. The first shots came from the humans. Energy beams lanced through the dark, striking the warship's hull. Explosions flared, but when the fire faded, the hull stood unbroken. The warship did not move. It endured. Then, slowly, it answered. From its flanks, towers unfolded, glowing with ancient fire. A single beam cut across space. One human corvette vanished in silence, sliced in 2. Another was caught in a wave of energy that turned metal to dust. Panic spread across the fleet. Evasive! Scatter! Hale shouted. Ships darted, weaving between asteroids, firing in desperation. Their weapons scorched the warship's surface, but it was like burning stone with sparks. Nothing pierced deep. The warship unleashed drones, hundreds of them. They moved with mechanical hunger, latching onto human ships, drilling, cutting, injecting corrosive fire. Crews screamed over comms as hulls were breached, yet the humans fought back. One cruiser rammed a cluster of drones, detonating its reactor in a blinding flash. Another corvette flew into the warship's shadow, targeting joints and seams with concentrated fire. Small victories, desperate, but real. The Resolute held the center, dodging beams and launching salvo after salvo of missiles. Hale's face was grim, his eyes fixed. Keep firing. Make it bleed. And bleed it did. For the first time, the warship staggered. A missile barrage struck one of its towers, shattering it into fragments. Drones screeched, swarming to repair. For a brief moment, the crew of the Resolute felt hope, but hope was short. The warship unleashed a shockwave, an invisible wall of force that hurled ships apart. 2 cruisers spun into the star, burning in silence. The fleet was broken. Hale gave the only order left. Retreat, now! The surviving ships fled into warp, leaving wreckage behind. The warship did not chase. It stood in the dying system, silent, victorious, like a judge watching prey scatter. Back on the Resolute, the crew sat in stunned silence. They had faced a legend and survived, barely. Hale recorded his report with cold words. The warship is not invincible, but it is beyond anything we know. Its weapons cut fleets apart. Its drones harvest survivors. Its hull endures firepower equal to dozens of ships. Yet it can be wounded. It can be slowed. Humanity must prepare, or humanity will fall. The council read the report, their faces pale now. The laughter was gone. Fear had taken its place. For the first time, they whispered of war, not against pirates or rivals, but against something older, colder, and stronger than any empire before. And somewhere in the deep, as the warship drifted back into shadow, other signals awoke. Hale's battle had not gone unnoticed. The legends were not one ship. They were many. The storm was gathering. Humanity had drawn blood, and now the legends would answer. Humanity rises. The battle near the dying star became a story that spread faster than trade routes. Survivors told of beams that cut ships in half, drones that swarmed like locusts, and a warship that stood unshaken in the fire of 7 human vessels. Yet amid the terror, one detail was repeated. The warship had been wounded. That detail mattered more than anything else. It was proof that legends could bleed. Across human space, panic and determination walked hand in hand. Colonies dug trenches into moons, turning mines into bunkers. Fleets were recalled from distant patrols. Civilian engineers worked day and night, modifying transports into makeshift gunships. For the first time in generations, humanity remembered what it meant to fight not for wealth or pride, but survival. In the core, the council could no longer hide behind silence. The screams of grieving families reached even their polished chambers. They declared an emergency, calling for unity. But Hale knew words alone would not be enough. The Resolute limped into a hidden dock for repairs. Hull plates were scorched, systems strained, crew weary, yet their eyes carried something new: resolve. They had seen death and survived. That survival gave them fire. Hale gathered his officers in the war room. The holotable showed the warship's shape, its scars, its towers. He pointed to the section torn by their missiles. "It can be broken," he said. "Not easily, not quickly, but it can. And if one can bleed, the others can too." "Others?" an officer asked. Hale nodded grimly. "The legends speak of fleets, not a single ship." "We must assume more are waking." The room fell silent. Then, slowly, the crew leaned forward. Fear had not vanished, but it had transformed. From the core, reinforcements came. Ships rushed from every system, officers promoted before they were ready, recruits trained in weeks instead of years. Old vessels, long kept in museums, were stripped of their gold plates and armed again. Humanity was building a wall of steel, but steel alone would not win. Hale pressed for something else: knowledge. The strange relay they had found in the asteroid belt became their key. Scientists studied its fragments, decoding ancient symbols. They discovered traces of a network, warning beacons scattered across the stars. Each beacon told the same story. Civilizations that had risen too high, disturbed the silence, and then fallen when the legends came. One beacon spoke of resistance. It showed diagrams of weapons aimed not at the warship's hull, but at its heart. Energy flows, gravity channels, weak points hidden beneath layers of alloy. The message was clear. The legends were not gods. They were machines. Machines could be unmade. Armed with this, Hale proposed a plan. They would not spread their forces thin. Instead, they would form one united fleet, every ship humanity could gather. Not to defend, but to strike. The council hesitated, fearful of risking so much in one battle. But the colonies demanded action. The people themselves pushed leaders aside, sending ships, crews, weapons. Unity was no longer a choice. It was survival. The fleet was born. 300 ships, from massive carriers to converted freighters. They gathered near a quiet star, their hulls shining like a constellation of their own. Crews sang old war songs, engineers worked until their hands bled, and soldiers wrote final letters to families they might never see again. On the Resolute, Hale stood before his crew. His words were not flowery but steady. "We are human. We have been warned." We ignored it. Now we face the storm. Some say we cannot win. Perhaps, but we can fight. And if we fall as a people who dared to stand, not kneel. The crew answered with silence at first, then with a cheer that shook the walls. Far away, the legends stirred. More warships emerged from folds of space, drifting like titans. Their hulls carried the dust of ages, their weapons the fire of forgotten wars. They did not broadcast, did not threaten. They only came, steady and certain, as if history were repeating itself. The storm front had arrived. Hale gave the final order. Bring the fleet to readiness. Humanity will meet them in open space. Engines ignited. Hundreds of ships aligned. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as two forces moved toward collision, one ancient, one new. The time of warnings had passed. The time of war had come. The last stand. The human fleet spread across the void like a wall of stars. 300 ships stood in formation, weapons armed, engines burning steady. They faced the silence of deep space, waiting. Then the legends came. At first, only one warship emerged, vast and black, its hull scarred from battles older than human memory. Then another followed, and another. Soon a dozen filled the system, each one a mountain of metal. Drones poured from them in swarms, a tide of machines ready to consume. The myths had returned, alive and endless. On the Resolute, Commander Hale watched the scene with steady eyes. His crew waited for fear, but his voice carried only resolve. We know they bleed. That is enough. The order was given. Humanity struck first. Hundreds of ships unleashed fire, missiles, beams, railguns, lighting space like a new sun. Explosions rippled across the hulls of the warships. Some towers shattered, some drones burned. For a heartbeat, hope filled the fleet. Then the legends answered. Beams of ancient power cut through cruisers, turning them into fragments. Shockwaves rippled out, sending corvettes spinning. Drones crashed into human ships, drilling and tearing. Whole wings of fighters vanished in flashes of light. The fleet screamed with losses, but humanity did not break. Carriers launched wave after wave of strike craft, each one guided by pilots who knew they would not return. Freighters turned gunships rammed drones head-on, sacrificing themselves to clear paths. Engineers patched systems mid-battle, hands burning on consoles. Every ship, every crew fought like the war depended on them alone because it did. The Resolute led the charge into the heart of the swarm. Hale ordered his fleet to focus fire on one warship. Missiles struck its towers, beams carved into its seams. Drones swarmed to repair, but humans pressed harder. At last, the massive ship shuddered. Its hull cracked. With a final barrage, it exploded, fragments scattering like broken stars. The cheer of victory thundered across comms. A legend had fallen, but the cost was heavy. Dozens of human ships lay in ruins. More warships closed in, their weapons glowing. The tide pressed harder. Hale saw the pattern. The warships coordinated, covering one another, forcing humanity into a corner. If they stayed, the fleet would be destroyed. If they fled, the colonies would fall. There was only one choice left. He opened a secure channel to all captains. His voice was calm, almost quiet. We are the wall between the dark and our people. We may not survive, but if we fall, we show the next generation how to fight. This is humanity's stand. Hold nothing back. The fleet obeyed. Ships rammed warships, detonating reactors in brilliant flares. Fighters dove into drone swarms, exploding in sacrificial bursts. Cruisers targeted weak points shown in ancient beacons, tearing open hulls one piece at a time. Humanity fought with desperation, creativity, fury, the fire that no machine could predict. One by one, more warships cracked. One fell into a star dragged by human gravity weapons. Another split apart when two damaged cruisers rammed its core. Each victory cost dozens of lives, but the tide began to shift. The Resolute faced its final test. 3 warships turned their fire on it, beams slicing through shields, hull plates melting. The crew worked in chaos, systems failing, alarms screaming. Hale stood at the center, unshaken. "Bring us in close," he ordered. The Resolute charged, dodging beams until it was nearly touching the largest warship's hull. Drones clawed at its surface, tearing it open, but Hale gave the final command. Detonate the payload, the Resolute's magazines, missiles, warheads, every weapon left, detonated in one massive blast. The warship's side ripped open, fire pouring out. Drones shrieked and fell silent. The giant staggered, then collapsed into fragments. The Resolute was gone, but its sacrifice tore a hole in the enemy line. Through that hole, the human fleet surged. They pressed the attack with everything left. When the battle ended, the system was filled with wreckage. Human ships drifted broken, fires burning in silence. Out of 300, less than 100 remained. But of the legends, Only a few warships survived, and they retreated, folding back into the dark. The survivors watched them vanish. No cheers came this time, only quiet, heavy with loss. Yet amid the silence, one truth burned clear. Humanity had faced the legends and endured. They had proven the myths could fall. Across the stars, the message spread. Colonies mourned, but also lifted their heads higher. The war was not over, but humanity had shown it would not bow. Commander Hale's name was spoken like a vow. His ship destroyed, his sacrifice remembered, his words carved into steel and stone. We are human. We do not kneel. And somewhere in the dark beyond maps, the remaining warships stirred. They had been challenged. For the first time in ages, they had lost. The storm was not ended. It had only begun, but now humanity was ready.